Hello friends, this is Dr. Vijay, consultant surgical oncologist from Apollo CBCC Cancer Care.
Hello friends, I am Dr. Rushit Shah, medical oncologist, Apollo CBCC Cancer Care, Ahmedabad.
Today we are going to discuss about a topic on diet, physical activity and alcohol consumption and certain associated myths. These are actually taken from 2020 guidelines of American Cancer Society. And why are we doing this is just because day in and day out in our clinics we keep regularly seeing patients who come to us with lot of suffering in their minds right from the point of diagnosis till the treatment and in the follow-ups as well. And this suffering is not just only related to the patient, but it also goes on to their relatives as well as to the friends who all are there with them. One main important thing which we are noticing is the most important question which we face is what diet has to be taken, what diet has to be followed. And they usually ask us, is there any particular food which might have caused this particular cancer? So to break into those things and to create certain awareness, we are trying to do this to our best. And I think let us start, Rushit, about this. So the first important thing which I would like to know about is about the role of weight, or body weight with respect to cancer prevention or in case of cancer genesis.
So in this case, recommendation from American Cancer Society is to achieve and maintain the healthy body weight. But first, how excess body fat or excess body weight occurs? It occurs from energy imbalance as a result of excess of energy intake and less of physical activity. So imbalance between this results in excess body fat or excess body weight. Apart from that, other risk factors are a person's own body metabolism as well as aging, which also affects the body weight or body fat. So dietary factors which are most consistently associated with increase in body fat are Western types of diet, high intake of fast food, refined sugars, refined carbohydrates, as well as less intake of raw vegetables and fruits, what we call Mediterranean diet, which actually is helpful in reducing the weight. Also, aerobic physical activity, including walking, running, swimming, these activities are helpful in reducing body weight rather than a sedentary lifestyle, sitting for a lot of time against the screen like a mobile phone or laptop. Those are very harmful activities actually and leads to weight gain. So next question is how do we measure our body fat? So there are a lot of precise method by which we can measure our body fat, like DEXA scan, special kind of MRI and CT scan, but these methods are not logistically feasible and we cannot use this for general public. But what we can use is body mass index called BMI, which actually uses a person's height and a weight, and a ratio is calculated and a figure is derived. So normal BMI is between 18 to 23 for a Indian and all Asian population. Any BMI between 23 to 25 is considered overweight, and above 25 we call it as obese. So it is again categorized into type 1, 2 and 3, stage 1, 2 and 3 by BMI of 25 to 30, 30 to 35 and more than 35. So we should try to maintain the BMI in ideal range, that is 18 to 23. So it is the most important thing. And so why excess body weight is harmful? So it is a risk factor for a lot of cancers apart from other cardiovascular and health effects. Cancers like oropharyngeal cancers, esophageal cancers, gastric cancers, liver cancer, postmenopausal breast cancer, colon and rectal cancers, and endometrial cancers. These are the very common cancers in which obesity is a causative factor. So that's why we should assume a lifestyle which is actually beneficial, and by increasing our physical activity as well as decreasing the intake of particularly fast food and refined foods. To stress more, I have some data to show, that is 11% of cancers among women and around 5% of cancers among men are actually they can be attributed to the increase in body weight, and 60% of all the uterus cancers, that is endometrial cancers, and more than 30% of the gallbladder, liver, and kidney cancers are attributable to the obesity. So how does excess body fat or obesity contributes to the increased risk of cancers, and what is the pathogenesis? So basically it creates a pro-carcinogenic environment. It increases the overall oxidative stress in the body, increases the proliferative activity of the cell, and decreases the death rate of the cells. So thereby it increases the risk of getting cancer. So Vijay, I would like to ask role and importance of physical activity with regards to general health and particularly cancer.
Right, Ruchit. As you have rightly mentioned in your talk about the body mass index, which has to be maintained at a proper level, and which is particularly different with respect to Western population. We usually go on the internet and we'll just start typing our weight and height and check our BMI. But exactly, we also need to know that the chart for Indian population is different, like you have mentioned, and that particular thing is most important for us. To maintain that ideal body mass index, physical activity is must. It's not just that only with diet we can gain everything. Physical activity is definitely important, and as you have also told about sedentary life, that also has to be restricted. So when it comes to physical activity, the American Cancer Society has actually issued certain guidelines for particularly in adults, moderate physical activity of about 150 to 300 minutes a week. Or suppose if it is in case of vigorous activity, then around 75 to 150 minutes a week is okay. But when it comes to children or adolescents, an hour a day, at least an hour a day, they have to undergo some activity, physical activity. In addition to that, they also need to go through certain muscle strengthening physical activity, bone strengthening physical activity, which is more important for them. Not with respect to cancer prevention, but with respect to body development as a whole. And these two have to be done at least thrice a week. So this is one most important thing. And why are we actually recommending these things for children and adolescents? It's only because it's kind of a habit formating thing.
Right.
If they get habituated to this form of exercise, they'll keep continuing it even when they become adults. But when it comes to adults, do we need to really go to a gym and hit the gym to reduce our weight and increase the muscle? No. Our only intention, particularly in adults, with respect to American Cancer guidelines, is such that American Cancer Society, they say that physical activity which is aerobic in nature, like swimming, running, or walking, or even cycling. These things are more important, particularly for us, and not just muscle strengthening exercises. These two have to be delineated and separated and have to be thought in that way. So what is the actual benefit of physical activity? It reduces cancers, like you have mentioned, certain cancers like postmenopausal endometrial cancers, postmenopausal breast cancers, colorectal cancers, kidney and liver cancers, like wherever there is a risk factor of obesity as a whole. So all these things would be prevented. And coming to sedentary lifestyle, particularly in these COVID times, we all are at home. Most of the people are working from home. Screen time is increased, sitting in front of the laptops or mobile phones. So in that case, when these things are unavoidable, at least take a break, keep moving around in the home itself. So that is more important. And one more important thing, it's not just the food intake which has to be restricted and the sedentary lifestyle which has to be restricted, plus the physical activity. Most important thing is the mental stress. This has also have to be reduced in the form of yoga, meditation, or whatever things can be done that has to be done. And what is the biological evidence for this? One, physical activity has a huge impact in case of metabolism in the body, insulin glucose metabolism, reducing the inflammatory situations, and also having proper immune functions. These all things also indirectly have a role in reducing the weight and thereby also preventing certain cancers. So with this part of our discussion related to weight and physical activity, I would like to just enter into the domain of diet as well as the habits. So if we consider about alcohol, what is the recommendation by American Cancer Society with respect to alcoholism?
Right. So alcohol is actually the third major modifiable risk factor for cancer, apart from smoking or tobacco consumption as well as obesity. because alcohol causes as much as seven, increases the risk of as much as seven types of cancers and many more probably. For example, alcohol increases the risk of oral cancers, oropharyngeal cancers, esophageal cancers, stomach cancer, pancreas, cancer of pancreas, cancer of liver, and even postmenopausal breast cancer and colorectal cancers. So basically, the ethanol is the main ingredient in the alcohol which is consumed, and ethanol as well as aldehyde, which is the result of metabolism of alcohol. Both of them causes a lot of oxidative damage and produces stress to our body, and thereby increasing the cell proliferation, and by thereof they increases the risk of cancer. So best thing is to avoid alcohol at all. American Cancer Society also recommends the same. They've changed their recommendation to avoid the alcohol at all, and if at all it is not possible, then to limit the alcohol consumption to only 1 drink per day for women, and not more than 2 drink per day for men. So that is the recommendation regarding the alcohol. So Vijay, what are the healthy dietary patterns, and how do they affect the risk of cancer and overall health of a person?
So a healthy dietary pattern. Actually, if we talk about dietary patterns are not uniform over the entire world. There are different dietary patterns in America, different dietary patterns in Mediterranean region, and even in our Indian subcontinent, we differ. South Indian food is different, North Indian food is different, Gujarati and Northeastern food varieties are different. But if we talk in a broader perspective, just to with respect to vegetarian food, fruits, vegetables, and meat and all, in that way, if we speak about foods which are high in nutrients, particularly in amount, which actually help in maintaining a proper ideal weight. So this falls into a category of healthy dietary pattern. So what are included in this? All the vegetables are included, dark green, red and orange legumes are included, beans and peas are also included. So when it comes to fruits, whole fruit is, especially whole fruits are important, with variety of colors, whole grains, these are all form a healthy dietary pattern. There are certain food which needs to be restricted, like red meat, processed meat, refined sugars, sugar sweetened beverages, and highly processed foods and refined grain products also. These have to be particularly restricted. So what impact does it have when it comes to figures? If you have a proper diet, healthy dietary pattern, it reduces the overall cancer incidence by about 5% in a lifetime. So at what cancers are being prevented? Like again, if we just come back to the situation like obesity and all, the similar cancers are prevented, like postmenopausal breast cancers, endometrial cancers, particularly with respect to vegetarian diet and high fiber diet, because when these kind of diets are being taken and avoiding red meat and processed meat, the motility of gut is increased. So thereby reducing the amount of time for which the gut intestinal mucosa is exposed to the carcinogens also gets reduced. So thereby reducing the incidence of colorectal cancers as well, GI and colorectal cancers. So there are multiple mechanisms apart from just directly thinking about on a personal basis. We can also think like, suppose if you are only dependent on vegetarian diet or something of this healthy dietary pattern, if you are following, overall it also reduces the environmental pollution, which they say by reducing the greenhouse gas and all. So that also has an impact on the overall health of the individual also. So these green leafy vegetables and all, they reduce the inflammation in the body, and also they have a lot of antioxidative effects on the body. So these are certain ways by which the damaged DNA is also being repaired, and proper insulin mechanisms occur in the body. So overall ideal body weight will be maintained, ideal healthy status of the body will be maintained, and so it also has a role in reducing the cancer as well. So if we just go into detail of these dietary patterns, I would like to know what is the American Cancer Society recommending with respect to vegetables and fruits.
So vegetables and fruits are complex foods containing lots of vitamins, minerals, flavonoids and carotenoids, by which they may prevent the risk of cancer. And also their fruits and vegetables are low in calorie, high in water as well as fibers. So by this property, they actually decreases the intake of food, average daily intake of food by consuming this vegetables and fruits, and thereby it is helpful in reducing the weight, and it may reduce the risk of cancer. So after talking about this fruits and vegetables, let's talk about the grains that we usually consume on day-to-day basis, and what is American Cancer Society's advice on the intake of grains.
So American Cancer Society particularly has told about whole grain intake, which forms a healthy dietary pattern. So what is a whole grain? They mean to say it's like the central part, 100% kernel of it, which is called the central part of the grain, that has to be retained. So about, if we are consuming about 30 grams of it per day, then that it leads to a reduction of 5% risk in the colorectal cancers. So it also comes with additional dietary fiber, which also has got a major role in reducing the cancers by increasing the gut motility. And these grains also reduce the fatty acid production, and so these reduces the BMI, reduces the waist circumference, all these things. Like overall, again, it is having an impact on the weight, but whole grain is of more importance, where about 30 grams per day is usually recommended. So because we have stressed upon the topic when we have reached about whole grains, what is your take on dietary fibers as a part of healthy dietary pattern?
So dietary fibers are found in whole grains, fruits, vegetables, many legumes, and the most important and well documented effect in reducing the risk of cancer of dietary fiber is with colorectal cancers. So by increasing consumption of dietary fibers, the risk of colorectal cancer is significantly reduced. That is proven fact. So American Cancer Society also recommends that 25 to 30 grams of dietary fibers should be consumed daily. And how does dietary fibers reduce this risk? So by decreasing the intestinal transit time of the food and preventing the amount of time which this food and toxic materials come in contact with our intestinal mucosa, it reduces the risk of colorectal cancers. So after this dietary fibers, I would like to know how does consumption of red meat and processed meat affects the cancer risk.
So we all think about when you're particularly asking about red meat and processed meat, we all know that these are the major risk factors, particularly for GI cancers. So before entering into the topic, I would like to give a clarification about what actually constitutes a red meat and what actually is called a processed meat. Red meat is nothing but this is an unprocessed mammalian muscle actually, so which is usually beef, pork, mutton, lamb or goat. So what do? They usually mince these things or keep it frozen. So these are called as red meat. When it comes to processed meat, this is nothing but the transformed meat through either cutting, scoring, salting, or sometimes even fermenting. So these things actually increase the lifetime of that particular meat. They improve, like it's kind of preservative. Sometimes even these are done to add the flavor in the meat also. So the examples of these are these bacon, sausages and hot dogs which we see in all these malls and all. These are mostly made of pork or beef, but sometimes even normal other meats as well. So when it comes in 2015, when the carcinogens are being graded in that, processed meat is considered as grade 1 carcinogen, while red meat is considered as grade 2A carcinogen. Though there are conflicting evidences whether to consume this, whether not to consume this, because in 2019 there were few studies which have actually said that there is very low to minimal risk of developing cancer only with red meat and processed meat. So there is a little conflicting evidence, but as of now, even today, American Cancer Guidelines, American Cancer Society suggest to restrict the intake, to limit the intake of red meat and processed meat, and to avoid processed meat as a whole actually. And the mechanism by which these actually, if we reduce these things, the mechanism by which they reduce the cancer is because they are reducing the DNA damage damage repair will be there properly, and because of the preservatives which are used, these preservatives are in turn actually turn as carcinogens when they enter into the GI tract. So these are all actually being avoided when we are reducing the intake of processed meat. So but then we would also have a doubt, like suppose if we are not consuming these, then how are we able to get the proteins? So American Cancer Society also says the normal poultry, eggs, fish, or even these vegetarian proteins like beans and legumes, these are enough for to supplement the protein from which are actually being left over if we are not consuming red meat or processed meat. So when we are speaking about this red and processed meat, I would also like you to throw some light on added sugars in the food.
So added sugars, all added sugars, whether it is white sugar or processed sugar, brown sugar, corn sugar or corn syrup, which is added to all the sugar beverages or the fast food, is actually harmful because it has very high glycemic index, and thereby it increases the blood sugar level very rapidly. So it thereby it increases the body weight, and by increasing body weight, it can lead to as much as increases the risk of 13 types of cancers. And if we talk about direct effects of this added sugars, then some studies showed that foods with high glycemic index, they directly increases the risk of endometrial cancer. So the added sugar should not contribute to more than 10% of our total calories, and that is the recommendation by American Cancer Society. So after talking about this sugar and particularly their amount in the processed food, what is your take on processed food per se?
So processed food, actually these days we are seeing in all the supermarkets where there are even vegetables which are cut, peeled off, and they are being sold in the supermarkets, but they do come with an expiry date. I think we can use those within that particular period of time. But otherwise, if we just consider about processing, there are actually two types of processing. One, a low level of processing where the processing is just done only for long-term preservative purposes, like in case of these wheat flours, or even certain any other grain flours or something, or even pastas and all. This is a low level of processing where the intention is only for preservation for a longer extent. But there are certain other kind of processing, like where the materials are highly processed, particularly in these ready to mix, ready to eat kind of materials which we see in all the supermarkets, and even desserts and all, and sometimes candies and these sugar beverages and all. These are highly processed, so they have lot of fat in them. They are highly sweetened, and refined grains are there. These all have adverse outcomes. These are going to have a negative impact on the health, and they are pro-carcinogenic as well in certain situations. So these have to be limited. So on a whole, processing is not bad, because there are certain things unless we process certain things, we can't preserve them. But particularly when it comes to these kind of shortcuts like highly processed food, that has to be avoided. When we are talking about the processing of food, I would also like to know about the daily intake of supplements like calcium, vitamins. On what basis and what levels have these to be done?
So if we talk about calcium, there is actually a few conflicting evidences, because there is, on one side, there is very strong evidence that increased intake of calcium may prevent or reduces the risk of colorectal cancers. Well, on the other hand, there is also some evidence that high intake of calcium may lead to increased risk of prostate cancer. So the key is to maintain optimal intake of calcium, and American Cancer Society suggests that daily intake of calcium should be 1000 to 1200 milligram per day. And regarding vitamin D is also has documented evidence and advantage in preventing the risk of colorectal cancers. So a person should not be deficient in vitamin D3. That is the actual recommendation by American Cancer Society. There is no specific recommendation regarding the amount of vitamin D which we should be consuming, but a person should not be deficient in vitamin D. That is the key. With this discussion, our message is to maintain the optimum weight, to follow good dietary patterns, and to continue a good level of physical activity for overall health benefits as well as reduces the risk of cancer. So after completing this, we would like to take some questions and few myths which we usually have in our day-to-day life, and we would like to answer them and bring clarity to the topic. So the first question is, what are antioxidants and what do they have to do with the cancer?
Right. This is really important because day in and day out we are just seeing these advertisements everywhere and about antioxidants. Consume these antioxidants. This will reduce your stress and everything. And even certain few patients also keep asking us about these antioxidants. And we also do recommend antioxidant tablets for certain individuals in certain case of scenarios, but not for all. So this is like a double-edged sword, because we know the mechanism of stress-induced oxidative stress in the body, which may actually lead to particular cancers, carcinogenesis. But at the same time, utilizing antioxidants tablets as such also may have a negative impact in the body. But if we are using antioxidants on a whole, overall the normal healing mechanism may get influenced. So what the American Cancer Society says is that you need not take antioxidants separately as a supplement, but the antioxidants which are there in a whole fruit, like this vitamin C, vitamin E, and even these carotenoids or some other food compounds, these are which are there in the fruit as a content is enough. Because there are certain studies where they have seen by just giving antioxidants there is no much benefit for any patient. But on a whole, if consumed in a part of whole fruit, because along with the dietary fiber, along with the other additional vitamins and minerals in the fruit, these antioxidants are actually beneficial. But on a whole, if you just ask whether we should consume antioxidants as a supplement, I don't think that is a reason. That is a solution for it. So when we talk about this thing, another most important, few patients do ask about this: how is coffee and how does coffee have an impact in cancer?
So initially coffee was found to reduce the risk of endometrial cancer as well as the liver cancers, and then few studies came up that it also reduces the risk of oropharyngeal and laryngeal cancers. But simultaneously, we do know that very hot beverages like above 149 Fahrenheit, any hot beverage increases the risk of cancers of upper aerodigestive tracts. So we have to be cautious about that also. And basically, coffee has a lot of ingredients like caffeines, flavonoids, and many other biologically active compounds. And it reduces the risk of cancers by antioxidants property, increasing the gut transit time, and repairing the cellular damages. So these are the mechanism by which coffee helps to reduce the risk of cancer, which is shown in few studies. So we can say that it is not harmful at least, and it may prevent some cancers.
Okay.
So now I would like to take a question that many people have a question that what is the gluten-free diet, which we commonly found in our day-to-day food or something,
Yes,
which
yes.
is written like gluten-free food, and what is their role in reducing or increasing the risk of cancer?
So gluten is actually a protein which is found in wheat and rye and all. This actually doesn't have any ill effects
Right.
on anyone. Particularly, gluten-free diet is used in certain scenarios where patients do suffer from malabsorption syndromes, out of which one is a celiac disease, where they are totally not sensitive for gluten. They'll have a lot of diarrhea, a lot of absorption difficulties when they consume gluten. So particularly these patients, yes, gluten-free diet is must and should, because whenever they take gluten, there is a lot of injury which happens to the intestinal mucosa, and during the repair, there might be certain incidences that few patients are at risk of gastrointestinal malignancies. So yes, gluten-free diet is particularly important only and only for celiac disease patients and not for all. So this advertisements which go on here and there for gluten-free diet and all doesn't make much impact on routine normal public. So for us, I think normal diet is enough. We need not go for gluten-free diet.
Right.
So, but if at all we think for particularly with respect to celiac disease, yes, it reduces colon cancers and certain GI malignancies as well. So after this, I would like to even know about certain anti-inflammatory products which are coming in the market. So what is your take on that?
So basically, inflammation has been recognized as a physiological response of our body to any insult. And gradually, it was found that in cancer also there is an inflammatory milieu by which it increases its spread to other organs. And certain chemicals and products are also found to have this inflammatory property and thereby increasing the risk of cancer. So the food which we consume, certain foods like vegetables and fruits have lots of anti-inflammatory compounds by which they reduces the risk of cancer. So basically the fundamental is to consume the foods which have anti-inflammatory properties. Those we've already discussed, like reducing the intake of best intake diet and increasing the intake of raw fruits, vegetables, and less refined food. So that is the thing. And what is your intake on irradiated food, Vijay? Like why are foods irradiated and can those food increase the risk of cancer?
Yes. Food irradiation is actually a technique to decontaminate certain food or even for a kind of preservatives also. It's similar to pasteurization of milk. So food irradiation as such did not have any impact on carcinogenesis, nor does it have any ill effects on any other health issues also. So but food irradiation it does not even affect the texture of the food, it does not even affect the content of the food, it does not even affect the way how it gets digested in the body. It has no effect. It is just kind of pasteurization in milk, which is a kind of preservation and even decontamination technique. So American Cancer Society also says, and even the WHO also says, that there is no evidence that irradiation of foods cause cancer. So particularly with about irradiation, this is the take on it. So there are even certain advertisements which go on even on Swiggy and Zomato applications, wherever we see, and even in restaurants we see detox drinks which are being available, and even certain cleansing drinks, body cleansing drinks and juices. So what is your take and what does the American Cancer Society recommend about those?
Yes, so there are certain claims that consuming this kind of detox drinks or remaining on specific fruit juices for a week or more than a week and avoiding all the solid food and other all items may be helpful and reduces the risk of cancer and detoxify our whole body. But those claims are wrong actually, and yes, consuming fruit juices actually helps in deriving many nutrients in a larger amount, but at the same point of time, fruit juices are actually lacking in fiber as compared to the whole fruit. So though we can consume more micronutrients, they are lacking in the dietary fibers, and above all that, we are missing other nutrients and other calories of food which we usually consume. So there is no point in taking this detoxifying drinks or any fruit juices for a longer period of time, or rather exclusively taking those drinks only. That is the thing.
Even as such, even kidney and liver in the body are also actually, their function is to detoxify.
Yes, so there is actually no need to take additional detoxifying drinks, because when our liver and kidney are normally functioning, they only take care of those toxins which are generated on day-to-day basis.
Right.
So there is one more question which people usually ask, that regarding microwave ovens. So are the ovens harmful and it should be used or not used?
Microwaves as such does not increase the risk of cancer. One important point. It is the food which we are consuming rather than the way how we are cooking, which is more important. But having said that, grilled chicken and all these kind of things definitely lead to an increased risk of cancer. So and the additional point which I want to make here is, even certain people also ask about the way how they are going to preserve. If they are preserving the food in plastic, will it impact? Yes, there are certain plastic materials which lead to, if we are keeping some highly boiling things or even a hot thing in a plastic material, if we are carrying plastic container, there may be certain amounts of carcinogens which might be just getting dissolved in the food, though not proven, that may still may be a possibility. Even in Teflon coated dishes also, that may still be a possibility being a carcinogen. So if we have to strictly speak that even in the minute quantities we don't have to take any risk, then the only option is to use glass container or metal containers for storage. So particularly when asking specifically about microwave, no, it does not increase the cancer risk, and glass and metalware are the ideal containers for food preservation and storage. So having said this, I want to know about the latest advertisement which goes on about organic food
Yes.
and also pesticides and all. This is one more important question
Mm.
which people do
Mm.
ask, because of pesticides our cancer rates are increasing in India. So what is your take on it?
So the term organic is popularly used to designate foods which are grown without any use of chemicals or fertilizers. This term is used for even animal products because they don't use any antibiotics or chemicals. They do not feed any chemicals to the animals. And for plant organics, they do not use any fertilizers or pesticides to grow them. So, my take on organic food, and even American Cancer Society recommends that organic food doesn't provide any additional nutrients. So, in that way, there is no point of taking organic food. Yes, there is one study that organic food consumption reduces the risk of particular type of lymphoma, that is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. There are some reports, but we definitely can remove those pesticides and fertilizers by simply washing our fruits and vegetables in our day-to-day practices. Moreover, in resource constrained countries like us, and also American Cancer Society also suggests that we should more prioritize the consumption of fruits and vegetables over consuming very costly organic food. So that should be our more priority, and that may even prevent or reduces the risk of cancer more effectively than consuming the organic food. My next question is, do vegetarian diet reduces the cancer risk?
Yes, this is one important question, particularly for Indians. Vegetarian diet actually can be termed as a healthy dietary pattern, like the way I was answering in the previous question, where the diet usually comprises majority of green leafy vegetables, fruits, whole fruits, and even whole grains. So this is a healthy dietary pattern. This is a vegetarian diet. So as such, if we call vegetarian diet, yes, it is protective against cancers. Avoiding red meat and processed meat, yes, it is definitely important in protecting against cancers. But at the same time, we need to be vigilant that we should not become more and more stricter with respect to being strictly vegetarian. So sometimes once in a while we can think about missing out and taking a normal diet as well. So that is what even American Cancer Guidelines also say. So fortification with zinc and iron, these things are important. Otherwise this may lead to iron deficiency anemia if we properly miss out on other parts of the diet. So which we call it as a Plummer-Vinson syndrome, where they will be at a higher risk of periesophageal cancers. So on a whole, if asked, vegetarian diet is better when compared to strict non-vegetarian diet, but it also comes with certain side effects. So majority of the questions I think we have answered. Like if the viewers have any certain questions or queries, or maybe in our talk if we had committed any mistake or any doubts among that, you can still call back or even give your feedback on the description area below or even the comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you.